I'm going to start it off and asking the question, of the panel, and then from that, be thinking about a question you may have specifically for the group or for each one of them. If you looked at had a magic wand, or that you could say, if pork could do this, it would greatly enhance the opportunity I have for my specific, restaurant or chain or venue for that. So what would it be that you would give recommendations to, that you would like to see, that would make your life much easier, or the opportunities for pork much easier in that? And Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you have to turn your mic on there and just...
Well, if I had a magic wand, something that I would like from pork. Goodness. That's a tough question. Educating the public, and I think that they do a great job with that. Leon and I were talking, the difference, not every pig is created equal. Not every animal is created equal. So if I had a magic wand, every pig would be the exact same marbling and would be the exact same in tenderness. And, so it's a big challenge that we have to overcome when you're talking like cuts like the loin and stuff. Braising cuts aren't as big of a deal, they're all going to tenderize and stuff like that. But if I had a magic wand, I think I would make every animal the same. So,
Dominic?
So I think one of the biggest differences when we work with pork as opposed to beef is the intermuscular marbling. So I know this is truly magic wand sort of stuff, but if we could work on the genetics to get better intermuscular marbling, whether it's from breeding in the different types of pigs or in the feed itself, but I think that would work wonders in the loin area. In addition, I was teaching some of my guys just to work with pork cheeks the other day, and really, really proud. We sold over 50 pounds of pork cheeks this last month at a seafood restaurant, paired with some shrimp, and people were really excited about the texturals. And then after this lesson in pork cheeks, we went to beef cheeks, and that was some of the comments that my guys got from cleaning them. They're like, holy cow, what a completely different type of meat, even though it's the same muscle. So if I could do anything differently with pork, I would definitely work on improving the intermuscular marbling of that. And I know that that's tough because that's not necessarily specific to the species. But
so magic wand, I would say gaining more broader customer acceptance of pork in general, right? Having people feel good about eating pork, whether it be from a health perspective or from an ethical perspective, from a sourcing standpoint. I think pork gets a bad rap from a health standpoint. A lot of times, bacon is bad and so on and so forth. And, I think there's everything in moderation is good. And I think if we could have broader acceptance from a customer standpoint of people feeling better about what they're eating, whether it be, like I said, nutritional, sourcing, ethical standpoint, I think would really bolster the industry.
Okay. Who has a question that they would like to ask of either the panel or the individual?
When you talk about the challenge, here we go. When you talk about the challenges of new products and the consistency, one that comes back in as you look at it, and maybe a little bit more on the corporate side, to bring on a new sandwich onto the line, even in the more established ones, is that a ground pork burger. Now, I understand that if I take that ground pork and put it in a casing, throw some sausages, I can add about $3 a pound to the price, and so it makes more sense to sell it for $4.99 than $1.99. But I'm thinking is that right now, and I'll name names and give credit, Fairway has a super nice ground pork burger. You put some cheese in it and you put some bacon into it. And I'm thinking there's one or two, I'll use the word fast food and not disparagingly. I think if you take those hamburgers off, put that ground pork bacon burger with some cheese and bacon in, is that you throw those cowboy burgers out the back door, except for those that can't eat that. I understand, but there's a challenge and a decision process that goes in when you make a change on your menu, and perhaps it goes to all three, is that the decision process when you make a change on your menu, bringing out a new product, that what you do, because there are some concerns and challenges, and there is a risk of bringing something on new. Is it acceptable?
Sure. I'll start with that. So bringing new menu items on our menu is challenging. And we have a lot of products that come through limited time offers. One of the challenges that we have is customer acceptance, right? So, just general customer knowledge of the new menu item. And then, we want to make sure that we can execute in the back of our restaurants on a consistent basis. Every time you bring a new menu item in, that creates somewhat of a challenge, right? People have to learn new processes, new procedures, how to cook, and so on and so forth. And to have good quality, you need to have velocity, what we call velocity through the restaurant. So you have to move the product through the restaurant at an acceptable sales level to keep fresh product in the back door, right? So profitability for the restaurant, keep fresh product to the customer, and have a great customer experience. So as you add new menu items, especially from our perspective, people make choices when they come to your restaurant. I'm going to buy a Big Mac or McRib, right? And so they're trading off. And so we do see some trade-off at times with that. And so you see loss in sales on one side, but gain in sales on the other side. And that's true for LTOs, right? So they come in one time to buy an LTO, then they're going to trade back and maybe buy something else the other time.
Ernie, stop. LTO for the group?
Limited time offer.
Like McRib?
Like McRib, yeah. And, McRib, we've created a great following with McRib, and by not keeping it on the menu full time. And I know everyone in this room probably would like to see that on our menu full time. But because we've created that demand, that mystique around McRib, it does move quite well through our restaurants when we do offer it.
So I think it's almost the magic wand question with the pork burger, right? I love pork burgers. One of the first ones I've ever had outside of the state of Iowa was down at Cochon Butcher in New Orleans, and they have a Pig Mac, which is exactly like a Big Mac, only it's done real artisan style with pork. We've experimented with this at the restaurants to try to get people to do this. I would say this, you will see it in an LTO at one of our barbecue locations very soon. Two things, from the developmental side of a pork burger. It's amazing the different textures of pork when you grind them. It's far different than beef. I'll give you an example. My favorite way to do ground pork is a product called Excel Belly Trim, which really isn't even done by big companies like a JBS Meats or a John Morrell or whatever. It's done from just smaller butchers. I get this one from Berkwood Farms. And it's basically the bottom belly cut. And it's a perfect 50-50, but the meat's it isn't as tender. And when you put it through those dies, it has a better mouthfeel to that. And we've actually fooled people to think that just salt and pepper, if you had a beef patty next to this pork patty, they think it's beef. It has that good of a mouthfeel and kind of that teeth component. The other part is it can't just be pure ground, just pork trimming. You would have to pay careful attention to the blend. We did an experiment after we were cleaning all these pork cheeks a while back and ground those just to eat some, just to make a snack with. And we couldn't believe the difference in texture. Same dye, same temperatures, everything was used exactly the same that we would ground other pork trim, and it just had a completely different deal. So no differently when they talk about these boutique beef blends, and I know everybody has their opinion whether it matters. They use chuck and short rib or plate meat or whatever with that. I can't taste those nuances as much in beef, but I can definitely taste them in pork. So when we go to try to have a successful LTO launch with a pork burger or some sort of mashed up where we're using a pork patty on it, that will definitely come in to consideration with that. Now, is that going to hurt a little bit? Yes, because we aren't going to be able to get the perfect grind utilization that you would. But I think getting the guests to gravitate towards it is the number one priority, and then we can figure out how to get some of the costs and everything in line secondary.
So for me, as far as menu choices and how I actually figure out what's going to land on the menu, we're a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Like I said, it's, we do probably 25% customized menus. So it's really, learning what my client wants when they come in. I'm normally dealing with one or two people that's making decisions for hundreds to thousands of people. So for me, it's more in what my client wants. A lot of our national conventions, like I said, they want to come here and they want to eat pork, and that's period. Their mind's made up when they get to me. It's just, what am I going to serve them pork, you know? So that's really how a lot of unique pork lands on my menus.
Up here in front has a question.
Do you want to catch it? So, as a daughter of a hog farmer and as a mom to a young child, I like to support hog farmers when I go out to eat. Except on the kids' menu, there's barely any options for pork. So, I guess, what are you three doing as far as new ideas? Can you take the chicken nugget and make pork nuggets? What are some things that you're doing there to add a variety for kids' options?
So I don't work directly with our menu development group, but I do have some insight with that. And I will say that because of pork's overall acceptance, and we were talking earlier, right, about just what would we change if we had a magic wand? It would be to raise acceptance of pork. There really hasn't been, to my knowledge, a pull from that age segment for that, but I think it's a great idea. Whether it's a pork nugget or something along those lines, I think that would be a fantastic idea.
So obviously with the barbecue, you can definitely go to Jethros and get a pulled pork sandwich for your child. That's on the kids' menu. But I think you're speaking to a larger or sort of issue is just the acceptance of that, in education and getting children to eat pork young. And I know that sounds really stupid in Iowa, but it's not throughout the rest of the country. To address like different cuts, and we have tirelessly tried to do whether it's basically pork wings, like boneless wings, or to do pork nuggets and things like that with it. I mean, I've probably spent more time trying to get that developed because I know when I do get it, it'll probably be the highest grossing menu item I have, and it won't be until we get people to eat it. And as hard as it is for me to understand, because when you start tenderizing, in working with even the pork loin, it becomes very, very similar in texture to chicken. People just don't see it that way. The flavors transfer perfectly. Any sauce that you can use on boneless, skinless chicken breast, you can use on a pork loin. I mean, I've never run across one that hasn't been that way. But for some reason, people don't necessarily see it that way.
So for me, believe it or not, out of the thousands of people I feed each year, I don't really deal with a lot of kids. So that's kind of a tricky question for me to answer. I don't really have to try to come up with a pork dish for children. But as far as unique pork dishes, if you were around, this week or whatever, like last night at the reception, we did pork fries, things like that. So, yeah, we do definitely try to come up with some unique dishes or whatever. Accommodating to the kids, though, like, I don't know, I think like great pork tender or something would be, like breaded pork tender, not sandwich, like a chicken tender, something like that. If a lot more people were trying to come up with things like that, I think you would see a lot more of them kids just naturally being like, oh yeah, I'll have pork tenders tonight instead of chicken tenders. So.
Or the pork meatballs that you had.
Oh yeah, pork meatballs. Did you have those?
At the media.
Yep.
Luncheon yesterday with the bacon in it and.
Absolutely
that would
great,
be a good
huh?
kid option too. I mean,
sure.
Picking them up and grabbing it.
And a couple years ago, we did a pork meatball, and I did a variation of it. We did it with pasta, and it was absolutely amazing. So a kid's item like that, something like that, would absolutely work for us. It's just we don't have a lot of kid requests, So,
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Way in the back, there is a question.
So with this new cell-cultured meat trend kind of coming down the road, has there been kind of any preparation for this? Are you guys excited about it, not excited?
The question is alternative proteins, in this case cell-cultured meat, or it's twofold, either the plant-based meat side or the cell-cultured for each of the.
go first. Am I personally excited about it? No, I don't. I don't think it's going to have its place. And so, I touched on it in my presentation about trusting food. Right today, customers don't trust where their food comes from today, and it comes from a farm, and it comes through our modern food production system, and people are skeptical of it. Already today, and you're like, well, that's a tenderloin, right? That's a pork tenderloin, or that's bacon. But to say, there's going to be a wide customer acceptance of culture-based, whether it be plant or cell culture grown in a lab, animal replacement, I think it'll have its niche market for those that for one reason or another don't want to eat protein that comes from an animal that was raised on the earth. But I don't think it's going to be widespread. That's just my personal opinion of it. I think it's just like anything else; it'll have its niche market, and it will probably be quite expensive for quite some time.
It's an interesting thing to me because years and years ago when the whole cloning thing started and people were all in uproar and, oh my God, these scientists up at Iowa State and wherever they're playing God and we don't like any of this, but now when we're culturing meat in a lab, nobody's saying anything with it. And then you go to other products like the Beyond Burger, these protein-based things that kind of taste like meat but aren't. First and foremost, the actual fact that those are so unhealthy for you to eat are going to kill most of the Beyond Burger and type things. Yes, there'll be a place for them, no differently than there's a place for purely vegan restaurants and things like that, but it won't be widespread because, again, people that are truly interested in nutrition from a diet standpoint as opposed to a lifestyle sort of thing, they're not going to fall for it. When they start to see patties that are basically oozing hydrogenated vegetable oil through them, that's probably going to be a big killer for that. And then it's going to be the same thing, like he said with the meat. If people don't trust it, and they're not going to trust it, kind of like soil it green, they're not going to go for this. And then the fact that they're probably in our lifetimes never going to be able to find a way to make it affordable is going to shut it down.
I agree with these guys. There's something about a burger that bleeds beet juice that just isn't right. I can't stress enough. I've grown up in Iowa. Pork is king in my world. We have several concession stands across the street at Wells Fargo Arena. Like I mentioned, we do over 3,400 pork tenderloin sandwiches annually. We have an Impossible stand, and we do like 10 burgers annually. But these guys are right. There's a niche. There are people who want that. There are people, for whatever reason, they're interested in going that route. I don't think it's really going to affect my future in the convention center world setting. It's pretty cost prohibitive to serve a bunch of Impossible burgers or something for lunch when I can do a great pork burger for a couple bucks, So I don't see it changing my world.
Well, we've expended our time, and these Jerry Springer seats that we have up here aren't the most comfortable. So let's give a big hand to our panelists today for coming in.